Life is very much like a matrix, and we come here to the earth to accomplish certain things, to experience certain things, to learn many valuable lessons. As a result, life is much, much more than what we perceive with our five senses. There are layers of reality beyond what we can immediately detect. We are here incarnating from one lifetime to the next, learning powerful, powerful teachings that shape us and help us evolve. And the truth is, life is a series of cycles. These cycles can stretch across years or even decades, and they will keep repeating until we finally learn the lessons we need to learn. We may have new faces, new situations, but the lesson remains the same. Life will throw these challenges at us repeatedly, not to punish us, but to get us to wake up, to remember our purpose, and to finally conquer the challenge. For me, my challenges were many, but the biggest being understanding my self worth, standing up for myself, and no longer people pleasing others. From a young age, I found myself thrust into situations that I could not escape, surrounded by bullies and antagonists. Unlike many children, I did not receive the usual parental advice that many would give, which is, son, stand up for yourself. If someone tries to mess with you, you beat them down, right? This is the typical advice we'd hear from a parent, but I got the opposite. I was told if I fought back, they would bury me in the backyard of our house themselves. And so I had these people who were looking to harm me, but then I'm not fighting back because I'm more worried about retribution from my parents. And so this forced me as a child into a terrible situation that I had to sacrifice my emotional and mental well being to do what my parents told me to do. And in so doing, it messed me up. As a child, I could not understand why my parents chose this approach. Many parents would teach their children that defending themselves is a way to stand up for their self worth, to ensure they are not mistreated, to let people know that you will not be messed with. But my parents rather prioritized having a spotless conduct record over my own emotional and mental safety and well being. And so as a result, very early on when I used to fight back before my parents had given me this mandate, I used to beat these bullies down or I used to fight them to a standstill. And I was rather proud of that because I wasn't afraid. There was never this fear in my heart that somehow that if someone came for me, that I would be kowtowed to them. No, no, no. I had a heart of a fighter, but my parents drained that out of me. And so that then caused me to engage in a dialogue, a self dialogue of deprecation, losing my own will and desire to respond in the way that I could to maintain my self esteem and self worth. That deprecating dialogue would make me devaluate myself further and further in life, as if life was happening to me, not for me. And so instead of putting out positive and strong, confident feelings into the world, I shrunk as time went on because all of this had become so ingrained in me that it was almost hard to go against it because it's almost like wherever I was, there were my parents' words echoing in my head. And so this dilemma created a problem for me, a cycle. But then at some point in 2023, when I reached a low point, I had to reevaluate and I had to make a decision that I was going to escape this cycle of self deprecation, of undervaluing myself, that I would unleash the person inside me that I'd been suppressing for so long. That instead of avoiding conflict, people pleasing others, and trying to have a diplomatic approach, that it was time for me to become the villain. It was time for me to fight back. So I became that villain that I feared. And the weapons we fight with are not weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 4 to 5. Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand your ground and fight back against the schemes of the adversary. Ephesians chapter 6, verses 11 to 13. We cannot ignore the spiritual realm and the fact that the Bible tells us that many times our battle may be against spiritual powers. The key to successful spiritual warfare is finding the biblical balance. Jesus would cast demons out of people, and then other times he would heal people regardless of whether there was a demonic influence or not. But the Apostle Paul tells us we must wage the war against sin, Romans chapter 6, and we must oppose the schemes of the devil, Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 to 18. Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 to 12 says, "Finally, be strong in the Lord and his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you may take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." 2023 became a turnaround of standing up for myself in a way I had never allowed myself to do before. I had to prioritize my own needs, my own self worth above everyone else's expectations and demands. No longer would I put others first. I would advocate for me more. And that is what needed to change. A radical shift in my mindset. I stopped shrinking away from confrontation and started standing my ground. I began to fight back in every sense of what that meant, physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. I no longer allowed myself to be a doormat, passively accepting mistreatment from others. I seized control of my narrative. I reclaimed my power. When you go out to war against your enemies and you see horses and chariots and an army larger than your own, you shall not be afraid of them. For the Lord your God is with you, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. And when you draw near to the battle, the priest shall come forward and speak to the people and shall say to them, "Hear, O Israel, today you are drawing near for battle against your enemies. Do not let your heart be faint. Do not fear or panic or be in dread of anything, for the Lord your God is he who goes with you to fight with you against your enemies to give you the victory." Deuteronomy chapter 20, verses 1 to 4. The process of fighting back involved confronting every situation, every enemy who ever betrayed me, whether openly or in secret. I had to recognize who these enemies were with discernment, both in the form of people and situations that tried to undermine me. It wasn't just about standing up to others, it was about conquering the internal forces that had kept me small for so long. I had spent years allowing others to dictate my worth, but now I was determined to take back that power, to take back my birthright, to take back that which belonged to me. And so I played the game of life on my terms. And I defined my self worth, and I tapped into the divinity that resided within me. And a God force resides in each of you. Do not be afraid of your greatness. My parents are deceased now. Their words of the past did not mean that I had to stay beholden to what they commanded me to do when they were alive. Why let dead people continue to lead me down the wrong path? My profound realization was that in order to win, I had to stop thinking like a victim. I could no longer view myself as someone who was constantly being attacked, hurt, or taken advantage of unfairly. I had to adopt a mindset of accountability and empowerment where I was in control of my destiny. I was in control of my worth. I learned to outsmart those who tried to undermine me using their tactics against them. I became the strategist, not just reacting to situations, but proactively determining who was against me and how I would respond. I learned to navigate the challenges life threw at me with grace and strength. In so doing, I became hard as a good soldier. I became resolute, not timid. The lesson is not about winning every battle, but it is about learning to stand in your power and to value yourself regardless of how others see you. I had spent years waiting for external validation, hoping that others would see my worth and appreciate me for who I was. But the true shift came when I realized that I don't need anyone else's approval. My self worth is inherent, and it's time to acknowledge that. Doesn't matter if a single person doesn't root for me or anything like that, right? I continue to learn the lessons that life wanted to show me. And it was a powerful lesson about breaking free from the pattern of not realizing my own self worth, seeking validation from others, trying to people please. The journey was difficult, but it's necessary. By confronting my shadow self and choosing to advocate for my own well being, I was able to show others my true power, break from the cycle of self deprecation, and embrace all that was mine that God had set out for me. Because my life is a beautiful life. And it was important now more than ever to not live my life wasting years away on hoping for things that would never come. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. I forge my destiny, and no one will steal my destiny from me. If you like this message, please like, share, and subscribe. If you're new here, Welcome to Safe Space. If you're returning, I'm glad that you're back. In the name of the Most High God, I wish you health, wealth, prosperity, and abundance, blessings and protection. And remember, stand up for yourself at every turn. Take care.